What's up, Peace Giant fans? Um, I want to apologize. I know I said I was gonna try to go live for the first time this week, but I was wrapped up in the game, and you know, I totally forgot about it. I'm gonna be honest with you. Um, but uh, let's talk about the game. Um, the Giants lost another heartbreaker. Um, They probably lost Jackson Dart for a game due to a concussion. Russell came in, didn't look good at all. Maybe it was the rust. He's been sitting for a while. Um, I want to talk about a couple of things. Um, the roughing the passer call on Jackson Dart. I thought that was a touchy call. Uh, that was a touchy call, in my opinion. Um, Now, but there was a holding call, blatant holding call on Abdul Carter. I forgot what Chicago Bear offensive lineman. He basically had him in a bear hug. His arms was around his waist, and then when Swift ran past, he let him go. They didn't call it. So, what was good is good, was bad is bad. So in my mind, those penalties offset. But seeing how the Giants responded when Jackson Dart went down and left the game, they looked flat, bro. Flat. Um, Nobody could get separation. Russ couldn't create to give them time to get separation, which is what Jackson Dart does so well. Um, I don't know. Like I said, I think the only game I saw them, the only game they could possibly win other than the Raider game was the Bear game, and they lost it. Um, a lot of people are gonna say they're gonna blame Brian Daboll for not going for it on 4th and 1. Um, you could go either way. I think the Giants are bad to the point where you know would the Bears have went 99 yards to score? Unlikely. But what if they did? What if they did? And then they just put the game out of reach on that last drive. So that last drive they would have just had to ice the clock. Um, the Giants had, I believe, 12 pressures and no sacks. Caleb Williams played a hell of a game. I've never been a Caleb Williams fan. I felt he was overhyped, but watching him break those tackles and slide and manipulate and spin moves, he gave the Giants defenders problems. And I think that was a good thing for them to understand, because not every quarterback is going to stand there and let you tee off on him. And he's more mobile than Jackson Dart, and the Giants saw what happens when you don't have rush lane integrity, um, and you let him just zip and dip and spin, and he made a couple of throws. One was big to Colston Loveland, off platform throw. He was off balance, jumped up in the air, and rifled it like 27 yards. The dude got skills, and Ben Johnson is really helping him. But in the end, the Giants lost. Uh they got a lot of injuries. Deontay Banks. Oh boy. We need Poston the Debo back. We need Poston the Debo back, man. Deontay Banks doesn't look He doesn't look inspired. He doesn't look like he wants to play. When he gave up the pass interference to Roma Dunze, which put the Bears on the inside the 5 yard line. You saw Brian Burns walk up to him and talk to him, smack him in the helmet, tell him to get his mind in the game, because Roma Dunze is not going to run past Deonte Banks. He's not going to run past him. He's not faster than Deonte Banks. But Deonte Banks is not playing with any confidence whatsoever. And that's evident. And I don't know if they're ever going to get him back mentally. A lot of people today were calling for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll's job. Not me. I actually looked at the drafts from 22 to 23 to 24 to 25. Joe Schoen had one bad draft. That was the draft with Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, Darian Beavers, dudes like that. Even the Jalen Hyatt, Deonte Banks draft wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I just, because he had a bad draft in 22. He bounced back in 2023. He had a so-so in 24. And then he had a home run in 25. So, and don't forget, because everybody's going to talk about Deonte Banks and Jalen Hyatt, but if memory serves correct, they drafted Wandell in that draft, I believe, or was the year before. I mean, overall, he's really only had like one bad draft, Now, can you fault him for not getting depth on that team? Yeah. But let's be honest. There's not good corners out there laying around on free agency. You're going to get a corner via trade, and he doesn't want to trade draft capital, or he was told not to use draft capital. So, I mean, look, he's working with what he got. Brian Daboll is working with what Joe Schoen gives him. And for all of those people that are talking about Brian Daboll and fire him and this and that, look, man, the dude is coaching. He's coaching his ass off. And if you can't see that, you're not watching football. Last year and the year before, people were complaining about the Giants couldn't score. They couldn't score. They couldn't score. They couldn't score 20 points. If my memory serves me correct, the Giants have only had 2 games this season where they didn't score 20 points. 20 points or more. That was the Redskin game, and that was the Kansas City Chief game. So, and the last Philadelphia Eagle game, because I think they scored like 18 or 17, something like that. So, I mean, let's be real, man. The defense hasn't lived up to what its billing was. I said it, Carl Banks actually said it, but I did say it first. Dexter doesn't look the same. He got a sack today, and you saw him do his little dance. So hopefully he's starting to get it together and turn the switch on. Kayvon Thibodeau had about 4 sacks. He couldn't wrap up Caleb Williams. Brian Burns had him a couple of times. Abdul Carter even had him a couple of times. And, they just couldn't wrap him up. They couldn't get him down on the turf. But I mean, the Giants played, they played, man. They played. And Um, I don't think they gave up on Brian Daboll. And being that they haven't given up on Brian Daboll, you can't fire him. And if you do fire him, you have to fire Joe Shane. And I don't think who you gonna bring in. I heard some people talk about, oh, bring in Lane Kiffin. Really? Really? That doesn't make sense. And I don't see Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss because he's got carte blanche to do whatever he wants at Ole Miss. I would be interested if the Giants went after Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame. I would be interested in that. I also would be interested if they went after the Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator for the Chargers. Those are the only people I would really look at. Now, there was another person that was talking about, GM jobs, and the Giants should look at the Howie Roseman's assistant in Philadelphia. And I brought to his attention, don't we already have a Howie Roseman assistant in Brandon Brown, who's well respected around the league? If why are you gonna go and get another Howie Roseman disciple when you already have the original in Brandon Brown? That doesn't make sense. If you fire Joe Shane, then promote Brandon Brown. But we also have to look at it as all of the people that are calling for Brian Daboll to lose his job and this, that, and the third. The Giants had 400 yards of offense in this game. Let's be clear. Now, they also had 4 opportunities in the red zone, and they got to play better in the red zone, bro. But they had 400 yards of offense, man. And the job that this man is doing with Jackson Dart, do you really want to fire him and bring in another head coach and hope that this guy has an offensive mind where he can work with Jackson Dart and do the things that Jackson Dart likes to do? There's not too many Ben Johnsons out there, fellas and females, that can do what Ben Johnson did with Caleb. I'm sure coaches would want to work with Jackson Dart, but that doesn't mean they'll be a better fit. The Giants have a lot of injuries, bro. Micah McFadden is hurt, their best blitzing linebacker. Normally, he blitzes so Bobby Okereke can play coverage. Now with him out, Bobby Okereke is doing a lot of the blitzing, and Dane Belton is doing the coverage. They don't have a number 2 corner because, they have Cordell Flott, but they don't have a number 3 because Deonte Banks is trash. Drew Phillips, he's still good, but people are starting to pick on him because he's rotating over to be the number 2 corner with Cordell Flott, and then Deonte Banks is getting exposed as the number 3. A lot of people are going to hate me for this, but I think you got to give Brian Daboll another year. At least see what Joe Shane could do in this year's draft and give Brian Daboll half the season. If the Giants start off slow and don't look right, then do what you will. But to give up on Brian Daboll when his job is to develop Jackson Dart, and he's doing that. It may not translate to wins, but come on, people, we can't have it both ways, man. We can't have it both ways. His job is to develop Jackson Dart, and that's what he is doing. So you got to give him some credit for that, man. Him and Mike Kafka and the quarterback coach. You know what I mean? And you got to give Russ some credit, and you got to give Jameis some credit. Sitting down and going over film with Jackson Dart, you know, he has a good nucleus. Why risk breaking that up? Next year you get Malik back. Next year you get Cam Scatterbo back. Next year you'll have Micah back. You know what I mean? And then you have pieces you could work with, you know? And then hopefully in the draft, you can manipulate the draft a little bit. I've been doing mock drafts a lot. And there's some things the Giants can do to get extra picks and also get picks for the future. I've been doing aggressive mock drafts where I've traded a first round pick for like two twos, a first and a fourth, I believe, for 2 high second round picks and a third round pick. Then I played it conservative, and I traded our 4th round pick for some extra picks. So I'll go over the mock draft and what I did and show y'all what I did, but I don't think we need to give up on them yet, because I think the jury is still out on them because of the injuries. Now, if the Giants were 2-8 with everybody healthy, yeah, that would be a problem. That would be a problem. But, you know, Jackson Dart almost willed them to this victory before he got hurt. And he was making plays. I think the dude had like 200 and something yards passing and like 50 yards rushing. And I mean, he was doing it. He was doing the damn thing. But he needs help, bro. He needs help. And people could say, oh, well, that's Joe Shane's job. We don't know what Joe Shane was told not to do. If he didn't, let me tell you something. If we're sitting at home and we're saying you need to make a move at wide receiver, and the Giants didn't do that, maybe he was told not to do anything. So let's pump the brakes a little bit and give Joe Shane the benefit of the doubt. And also, maybe the players that they offered, teams didn't want. Maybe teams didn't want Jalen Hyatt. Maybe teams didn't want Evan Neal. Maybe teams didn't want Deonte Banks. So, I mean, it's you know, it's one of those things, you know. The Giants have 7 games left, and they're basically, you know, playing for a draft pick. But depending on how things go, this could work out to be a blessing. But I don't think you should give up on Brian Daboll when he's developing Jackson Dart. And Mike Kafka, and the quarterback coach, I don't know the man's name, so I won't chop it up. But those men are sitting around and they're creating a game plan for Jackson Dart. And that needs to be commended, because there's a lot of coaches out there that don't do nothing with the talent that they have. So, I mean, you're talking about Jackson Dart might be rookie of the year. You're talking about Brian Burns might be defensive player of the year. Now, how is Brian Burns maybe defensive player of the year, but Dexter Lawrence ain't doing nothing? Come on, man. Come on. You know, we gotta keep it all the way 100. And if Dexter Lawrence, I mean, they asked him, does he want to be here? He said yes. But I think the Giants organization really needs to sit down and ask him, does he still want to be a New York Giant? Because if he doesn't want to be here, you could trade Dexter Lawrence for a pick and get a young defensive tackle. He's not going to be a Dexter Lawrence, but if that's your thing to get a young movement going in, you could there's some young defensive tackles in this draft, bro. You know? So I'm with it. if he doesn't want to be here. I would love to see Dexter Lawrence in his career as a New York Giant, but he has to want to be here. And that's a question I think management is going to have with him, and an open, honest question. But don't be so quick to write off Daboll and Shane, man. I know it's rough. I'm dealing with it too. People are chewing my ass up as well, you know. And I know it's not easy. And I know we're sitting here and we're like, yo, we're 2-8 again, and blah 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 and blah blah blah. I know we've been there. But look, we have a quarterback. And we have a quarterback who's developing with the head coach that drafted him. So let's be easy, you know. If anybody needs to go, I think it's Shane Bowen, because he just doesn't. The talent is not being utilized, bro. You know, you got 4 first-round picks rotating along that defensive line: Dexter Lawrence, Burns, Thibodeau, Abdul Carter. 4. And sometimes they play Thibodeau at defensive tackle alongside Dex so they could play Abdul Carter and Burns. But they've been dropping Burns and dropping Abdul Carter in pass coverage in zone because they don't have Micah. Micah being gone plays a big part, bro. And hopefully he'll be back in a couple of weeks after the bye. But, you know, it's not a guarantee, you know. And who do they have to throw the ball to? I mean, Darius Slayton finally decided to catch the ball today. You know, I was like, wow, you know, that's what you can do when you decide to catch the ball. He's still a bum, in my opinion. He's not a number 2. He's easily a number 4, because if you have 2 receivers on the outside, one of them being Malik and Wandell in the slot, Darius Slayton is your 4th string wide receiver. Easily. So they got to figure out what to do with him. Jermaine Illuminor, I don't know what he was doing. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson got him twice, blitzing off the edge, and Jermaine Illuminor wasn't even looking at him both times. So, I mean, yo, you might want to blame Russ, but that wasn't Russ's fault. Russ had to eat that sack, you know? And when you're in max protection like that, you can't have that, bro. You can't have that. I don't know. But I would like to know what y'all think. You know, I would like to know what y'all think. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification button. Let's keep the channel rolling. My New York Knicks, shout out to them. They getting busy with Mike Brown. They're looking good. OG Anunoby is balling. Mikal Bridges is balling. So, you know, the Knicks are looking good. And Mitchell Robinson, oh my God. When Mitch plays, the Knicks are a totally different beast, bro. So they're looking good. But to all my Giant fans out there, don't be so quick to give up on Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll just yet. The jury is still out if they fired them or not. I don't agree with it, but I don't control the Giants. But I don't think they should fire him, because Shane has gotten better with the draft. Daboll has got his quarterback. He's developing him. They just need a real coordinator. And like I said, if management was going to do something, management should have intervened when Daboll and Wink were going at it, and Wink wound up getting fired. Because management should have said, yo, y'all are 2 grown men. Y'all don't have to like each other, but y'all got to get these players ready, because we're not firing either one of you. And if Wink was still with the Giants, they'd be a lot better than they are with Shane Bowen. That's just a fact. And I'm not even going to get into Robert Saleh because you know how I feel about that. The Giants should have been the first team to call him when he got fired from the Jets, but whatever. But we'll be back next week to chop it up, and we'll have another tough one. But this one hurt. This one hurt because this was another winnable game. And the Giants are playing competitive. They have not given up on Brian Daboll, bro. They haven't given up on him. So, as dejected as losing can be, they haven't given up on him. So think about that before we start calling for the man's job and doing all of this other stuff. Because his job and Mike Kafka's job and the quarterback coach's job is to develop Jackson Dart. And that is what they are doing. So, But I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go finish eating my birria tacos. Yeah, I got some birria tacos today. So I'm waiting to see how them joints taste. But I want to say peace and love to everybody. Hope y'all enjoyed your Sunday. Hope y'all teams won. Mine unfortunately didn't again, but we'll be back next week and hopefully the outcome will be better. And love, peace, and I'll see y'all next week. I'm out.